Hello, dear students. I hope you all are well. So, now it's the time when we need to start our second chapter in English. And the second chapter is Nelson Mandela Long Walk to Freedom. This chapter is from your book First Flight. This is the textbook. And this Nelson Mandela Long Walk to Freedom is written by Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela. Now, I'm going to tell you about the author. Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela was born on 18 July 1918 and he went for his heavenly abode on 5th December 2013. He was a South African anti-apartheid revolutionary, political leader and philanthropist who served as President of South Africa from 1994 to 1999. He was the first black president of South Africa, elected after time in prison for his anti-apartheid work. He also won the Nobel Peace Prize in the year 1993. And now I'm going to tell you about the characters associated in this chapter. The first character with whom we will be meeting is Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela, first black president of South Africa. He fought for the equal rights of the black. In that, he suffered a lot of pain for the freedom. The second character is Zenani. Zenani, the daughter of Nelson Mandela, who accompanied Mandela in his inauguration day. She was very much close to him. The next character is Thabo Mbeki. He was the first deputy president of South Africa, who was very close to Mandela. And the next character is Mr. de Klerk, second deputy president of South Africa. Now, I'll be telling you about the story. In this story, South Africa remained under the British rule for more than 3 centuries. Since 1948, a very cruel policy of apartheid was followed by the white rulers. According to this policy, white and non-white people were kept separate from each other. They were educated under separate systems and were kept in or out of certain areas. The blacks of Africa bitterly opposed such racial discrimination. At last, after a long struggle, democratic elections were held in which Nelson Mandela was elected the first black president of South Africa. On May 10, 1994, Mandela was sworn in as the president and there was wild jubilations among the blacks of the country. In the lesson, Mandela calls briefly how the day was celebrated and his feelings were at the time of those celebrations. He says that courage is not the absence of fear, but the triumph over fear. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear. Mandela's suffering had indeed made him a man of courage and character. So, in this chapter had been taken from Nelson Mandela's book of the same name. It provides us a glimpse of the early life of Nelson Mandela, his education, 30 years in prison, and the pain he had suffered in his young age. The chapter recounts his fight for the freedom for his own people who were tortured by whites. In this chapter, Mandela gives 2 contradictory pictures of his own country. One, in which the blacks were tortured and suffered quietly, and second, the blacks will be free to live the life of their own. So that was about the chapter. Now is the time when we need to open our books. I request all of you to open your book on page number 17. The first paragraph. In the first paragraph, I am going to read it out. 10th May dawned bright and clear. For the past few days, I had been pleasantly besieged by dignitaries and world leaders who were coming to pay their respects before the inaugurations. The inauguration would be the largest gathering ever of international leaders of South African soil. The ceremonies took place in the lovely sandstone amphitheatre formed by the Union buildings in Pretoria. For decades, this had been the seat of white supremacy, and now it was the site of a rainbow gathering of different colors and nations for the installation of South Africa's first democratic, non-racial government. It means that on 10th May was the day when Nelson Mandela sworn in as the first black head of state, South Africa. It was after years of struggle that his anti-racial party came into power. Until then, the seat had always been occupied by white presidents. That is why the author referred to the day as bright and clear. It was a morning full of hope. Days before this date, many notable personalities started congratulating him for his victory. For the first time in the country's history, so many international leaders came together for their inauguration ceremony. The ceremony took place in an open circular building made of sandstone consisting of Union buildings in the Pretoria city. The next paragraph states that on that lovely autumn day, I was accompanied by my daughter Zenani. On the podium, Mr. D. Clark was first sworn in as second deputy president. Then Tambo Mbeki was sworn in as first deputy president. When it was my turn, I pledged to obey and uphold the Constitution and to devote myself to the well-being of the Republic and its people. Here, the author was accompanied by his daughter Zenani on his big day. First, the two vice presidents took an oath. Then, when his turn came, he committed to respect, protect, and abide by the Constitution and to devote his entire self into the welfare of the country. The next line says, to the assembled guests and the watching world, I said, today, all of us do, by our presence here, confer glory and hope to newborn liberty. Out of the experience of an extraordinary human disaster that lasted too long, must be born a society of which all humanity will be proud. We who were outlaws not so long ago have today been given the rare privilege to be host to the nations of the world on our own soil. We thank all of our distinguished international guests for having come to take possession with the people of our country and what is after all a common victory for justice, for peace, for human dignity. Here, the author also mentions some part of his speech where he said that everyone by his presence was giving rise to hope for a new beginning. Previous rulers were discriminatory and lasted for long, but the ones who are given the opportunity to rule would stand up against discrimination. He was also glad to host a ceremony with the presence of global leaders. It was an achievement in itself. There was a time when South Africa, for practicing apartheid, lost all its international political relationships. Now, when there is no segregation on the basis of race and gender, other nations are happy to have healthy democratic relationships. Finally, they have come to power, and now they pledge to make everyone proud. He thanked everyone, especially the international leaders, for joining them in celebrating their achievements, which is a step towards an equal society where every human will be treated fairly. Now, the next paragraph says, we have at last achieved our political emancipation. We pledge ourselves to liberate all our people from the continuing bondage of poverty, deprivation, sufferings, gender, and other discriminations. Never, never, and never shall it be that this beautiful land will again experience the oppression of one by another. The sun shall never set on so glorious a human achievement. Let freedom reign. God bless Africa. Here, he mentions that after great struggle, they have finally achieved political freedom. His government promised to free everyone of the still existing poverty, hardship, and inequalities of all kind, along with assuring everyone of a country where no community will be considered inferior. He then exclaims that freedom should rule and may God shower his blessings on their land. Now turn to next page, page number 19. A few moments later, we all lifted our eyes in awe as a spectacular array of South African jets, helicopters, and troop carriers rode in perfect formation over the Union buildings. It was not only a display of pinpoint precision and military force, but a demonstration of the military's loyalty to democracy, to a new government that had been freely and fairly elected. Only moments before, the highest generals of the South African Defence Force and Police, their chests bedecked with ribbons and medals from days gone by, saluted me and pledged their loyalty. I was not unmindful of the fact that not so many years before they would not have saluted but arrested me. Finally, a chevron of Impala jets left a smoke trail of the black, red, green, blue, and gold of the new South African flag. Here, just after the newly elected president's address to the audience, an impressive arrangement of fighters, jet, helicopters, and soldier transporters raised everyone's head up in the sky. It symbolized perfection as well as military respect and obedience towards the free country. The high commanders who have won medals for their bravery also saluted and promised their loyalty. Mandela mentions that he was well aware that these commanders who were now saluting him would have arrested him under the previous rule as during the oppressive white supremacy. He was considered to be a criminal. The air show finally ended by making off the South African flag in the sky from smoke beneath the jet. The next paragraph says, the day was symbolized for me by the playing of our two national anthems and the vision of whites singing Nkosi Sikelel, Afriki, and blacks singing Die Stem, the old anthem of the Republic. Although that day neither group knew the lyrics of the anthem they once despised, they would soon know the words by heart. It means the author here now remembers the day as the playing of two national anthems of the country, one of the whites and the other of the blacks. On that day, no one knew the wordings of the anthem of the blacks, but Nelson Mandela was quite confident that everybody would soon learn this anthem that they once hated. On next paragraph, on the day of inauguration, I was overwhelmed with a sense of history. In the first decade of the 20th century, a few years after the bitter Anglo-Boer War and before my own birth, the white-skinned people of South Africa patched up their differences and erected a system of racial dominations against the dark-skinned people of their own land. The structure they created formed the basis of one of the harshest, most inhuman societies the world has ever known. Now, in the last decade of the 20th century and my own 8th decade as a man, that system had been, now change to page number 20, had been overturned forever and replaced by one that recognized the rights and freedoms of all peoples, regardless of the color of their skin. In this, we come to know that on the day of the inaugural ceremony, the author was remembering the days of past when this whole system of apartheid emerged. It resulted in inequalities and inferior treatment of dark-skinned people. They were deprived of their basic fundamental rights. As a result, one of the world's most brutal and inhuman society was born. This began ever before he was born. This system created an atmosphere of extreme cruelty and injustice for a particular part of the community. Now, when he is in his 8th decade as a man, no, he along with countless others have changed this entire system that treats humans as humans irrespective of their caste, creed, color or gender or age. So students, that's all for today. We'll meet again in the next video. Till then, if you have any problem, feel free to ask. Thank you.